Hello, everyone, and welcome to Groundwater Talk Live. I am the Groundwater guy, Tom Ballard, your host, and we got an interesting topic today that's of vital importance to the West and really can affect the entire country, as a matter of fact. So we wanted to talk about the continued drought, the expanding drought, actually, as we've seen here recently, and its impact on the Colorado River. Now, the Colorado River is a huge source of water and electricity for the southwestern U.S. and what happens there affects millions of people in Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, and that was what we're talking about here because it's really starting to reach critical phase. And I came across an interesting article that I wanted to, kind of go over and share with you here in a little bit. We're going to set it up a little bit, but the uh, the the situation is not really good out there and is really requiring the Bureau of Reclamation to take some emergency actions. Now, just visualize the fact that the Colorado River has more water allocated than it can actually provide, and for the most part, a lot of people there's all these allocations out there, and agreements have been made. Everybody cheats on them, and so it's just not a good situation, even in the best of years. We are not in the best of years in the situation out there. So that's what we're going to talk about today is the continued drought, and is the drought really what's the main impact on the Colorado River? Most people would think, well, it's dry, there's drought conditions out there, and this is true, but there's some other things going on too. So let me before we get going, if you're online and listening to this live, if you can drop a comment in the chat. If you're watching on a recording, if you can drop a comment, a like, share, we really appreciate that. That helps us get along well with the algorithm and get the word out. So we appreciate all your comments. If you have a comment, I'm really good about answering those. I'm always interested in hearing what people have to say. So comments are great. All right. So why is what is going on with the Colorado River a big deal? And this is a big deal. So really what it comes down to is Lake Mead and the Colorado River in general, and we're mainly going to focus on Lake Mead. We're going to talk about Lake Powell. And so it supplies, Lake Mead supplies water and power to Arizona, Nevada, Southern California, some other areas too. But those are the biggies. And when we talk Southern California, of course, we're talking Los Angeles area and a lot of bigger cities out there, and the suburbs too. So it's a huge deal because we think of Colorado River as the source of water, and it is for irrigation and for city water supplies, but the power is a big deal too. So this is certainly going to be something that's going to impact some big. We're going to talk about millions of people here is what this is going to impact, and this is a serious condition because it doesn't look like the situation is going to get any better. I we're seeing the Bureau of Reclamation take some emergency actions here, but it's going to be tough. So first of all, let's start where we're at right now in current drought conditions, and you can see the southwestern U.S. is in a sustained drought. The dark red there is the extreme drought, and red is merely a really bad drought, so the colors kind of go up from there. The drought has actually expanded into the upper Midwest. Texas is in the throes of getting hit pretty hard by a drought too, and so it is actually expanding. And this has been ongoing for a number of years. There's been and the definition of what is actually a drought, if you get some significant rain for 1 year, are you still in drought conditions, or did you just end the drought and now you're into a new drought? And that's kind of what's going on is we got some I would call them normal precipitation years that kind of broke the drought and then right back into drought again. So we're in a La Nina cycle and going into the third year of that, and that doesn't bode well for any return to normal precipitation, at least in the next year. So this is a serious situation that's bound to get more serious. So it is impacting a lot of things. I am going to be on the panel of a talk here next week that's going to talk about the drought and impacts. I'm going to talk mainly about groundwater issues, because I am the groundwater guy. But today we're talking mainly about surface water, and we're talking about hydroelectric power. So it's all surface water related. All right, so let's look at the Colorado River Basin, and it's really divided into two areas. You have the upper basin and the lower basin, and the upper basin and the lower basin do not get along. So it's the lower basin obviously includes a lot of areas that really, like Southern California, Los Angeles, that really are large consumers of both water and hydroelectric power. Phoenix, the upper basin, you have Salt Lake City gets some power from there. Denver gets some water and power from the Colorado River also. So it's so there are some bigger cities in the upper basin, but mainly the lower basin is Las Vegas is ever thirsty. You got to run all those fountains out in front of the casinos in downtown Las Vegas, and Los Angeles is just a huge population center. So there is more water being used than the Colorado River can supply, and that's kind of it in a nutshell. And we haven't even gotten into agriculture yet. We'll talk about that in a little bit here too. So here, when we talk about water supply and power, here's a situation with dams on the Colorado River, and hopefully you can see this. It gets a little small to kind of get everything in there, but you can see in the upper basin area there, you have a lot of small dams in Utah and Colorado. These supply water to local cities, to Salt Lake City, to Denver, and that's where a lot of those are going. So there are some dams up there, but the really big dams and the ones we're going to be talking today are Hoover Dam, which is Lake Mead in the Las Vegas area, which is right here, and then Glen Canyon Dam, which is Lake Powell, which extends all the way up into through Utah, and it is a big one. So Lake Mead is where we're really going to focus our efforts because things are pretty dramatic. But obviously Lake Powell feeds Lake Mead, so what goes on in Lake Powell is just as serious, and it impacts what's going on in Lake Mead as well. All right, so this is the Lake Mead water level situation that is trending right now, and so you can see various years. It's floated up and down a little bit, but starting in 2021, that green line here, this lower green line, pale green, you can see the water levels really started dropping. 2022, very dramatic. It's dipping down quite a ways, and when we reach certain levels in the reservoir, we start talking about stuff like minimum water pool, and get used to hearing the term dead pool, because these are situations that are not good, and this is kind of what we're facing. So I'll define those here in a little bit, but those are terms you're probably going to hear more. So let's look at Lake Mead. Current water level right around 1,044 feet above mean sea level. So that is the surface of the reservoir. We can see our minimum power pool, which is the minimum level that you need to generate hydroelectricity, and There's currently a number of turbines shut down because the water levels in the intakes are exposed. So minimum power pool, 950 feet. Dead pool, 895 feet. So dead pool, really a critical factor here. Lake Powell, similar situation, current water level 3,522 feet. And we can see that you got about 32 feet before you drop down to the minimum power pool. And then dead pool, 3,370 feet above mean sea level. This is the elevation of the reservoir at those particular points. Okay, let's look at some definitions here. Dead pool is the water level where a dam can no longer pass water downstream. Critical situation. So it's basically the dam is dead at that point. You get a little more water in, it flows through, you go back to dead pool. So unless you're managing the water to the point where it can fill up, dead pool basically means it's dead and everything dries up downstream. Minimum power level. Power pool is the level of the reservoir, which is the minimum that is required where a dam can generate electricity. If the elevation of the reservoir falls below the minimum power pool, you cannot generate electricity. A lot of people depend on the electricity from Lake Mead and Lake Powell. This is a serious situation, and it's basically what we're facing. We're not that far away from this in both circumstances, and like I say, they've already cut back at Lake Mead. So this is really what is going on here, and it's critical enough that the Bureau of Reclamation is calling for water cuts. They want Colorado River users to cut between 2 and 4 million acre feet, or come to an agreement to make these cuts within the next 60 days. Now, given the fact that Colorado River water users consistently cheat on their allocations and they can't agree on anything anyway, ever, this is very difficult to do. It really comes down to the fact that these cuts are above and beyond other conservation efforts currently in place. So you're talking, if you're looking at what 2 million acre feet is the minimum cuts necessary, you're looking at covering the entire city of Phoenix in water 6 feet high. So that's what 2 million acre feet really looks like. That's a lot of water. You double that to 4 million acre feet. That's covering Phoenix at 12 feet high. So it's a lot of water, and considering the fact that people are already cheating and going above their allocations anyway, this is going to be very difficult to do. The Bureau of Reclamation says you people need to come together and do this within 60 days, or we're going to make the cuts. So whether they wield that heavy hammer or not, but they have a very heavy hammer to wield there. And quite frankly, these cuts are going to hurt all over the place. That's just not water you can easily come up with, because Colorado River is already under conservation efforts and restrictions. You're talking above and beyond that, and a significant amount of water. So what is that really going to mean? We'll look at that in this article I'm gonna share with you here in just a minute. But first of all, let me take you to wait a minute. Here we go. I just wanted to share some pictures of the current situation at Lake Mead right now. This is from the Los Angeles Times, and I wanted to scroll through so you can get a visual. These are some really great pictures. So before we dive into this article, I really wanted to show these pictures, what the situation is really like. I mean, the water levels have dropped so significantly. It's exposed, sunken boats. They've been finding some dead bodies and mafia hits, people stuffed into barrels and grisly stuff, and so the B-29 that crashed into the lake after the Second World War has not been exposed yet, but it's getting close. So you may be able to walk up to that at some point. So that's So some pretty stark pictures here. You can see the white area here is mineral precipitation where the water level used to be up at the top of that white, and you can see how far down it's dropped. All that white is exposed area where the water used to be. And I can tell you, quite frankly, the water level currently in Lake Mead is the lowest it's been since the dam was filled in 1937. So it has never been this low since the dam was filled. Some jokester went out here and and took dried up fish and propped them up here as kind of some kind of grim memorial to the drying up of the lake. Um, there's these are the power intake structures. You can see how low the water level has dropped here, and like I say, a number of turbines are offline because of this. The city of Las Vegas has actually spent over $500 million, I understand, to build an intake that's down below here that allow them to take water until basically the lake gets down to dead pool level. So they're going to be able to get water, but at what cost? And as they take water, the levels continue to drop. Here's some more pictures. Here's a marina in the lake, and you can just see all this area that used to be covered by water is now exposed. Still people out there recreating, but pretty stark here. As a matter of fact, there's the marina there. So let's dive into the article here. This is let me scroll up here. This is an article from kind of an obscure source, but it's really a good article. So I'm using some Chiefio. I just came across this. It's not somebody I normally follow. So it's but I did come across it. But really fascinating article that puts together a lot of interesting information. So I thought I would share it with you. And it's just Chiefio. .wordpress.com and you can find it there if you're looking for it. I'll put the link to it in the show notes, but here we go. Let's dive into the article here. It's kind of a long one, but it makes some really good points. So he's basically saying right now, as you saw in the numbers above, Lake Mead is really at about 150 feet above dead pool, and that's where no water can flow through the lake downstream. Serious stuff. But but of course, before we get to dead pool, we get to minimum power pool, and that's where it stops generating electricity. So what they're saying here is the production at Lake Mead at Hoover Dam is cut to just 5 turbines producing power for cities from a total of 19 turbines uh, that are in the dam itself. Although 2 of those, as it points out, are used for power just to run the dam complex. So if 17 turbines that are used to generate power, 12 of those are shut down. 12 of those are shut down because of the low water levels. So this talks about the Pelton type wheels that are used to power the dam itself. There's the megawatt hours produced here, and basically it describes the process here. Basically, 2.4 megawatt the power the dam's own operations. So maximum capacity of 2,080 megawatts. The maximum net generation was 10.348 terawatts in 1984. It's since dropped since then. So in 2015, the dam generated 3.6 terawatts. So you can see pretty substantial reduction there in the actual power generated from the dam. So, and that's along with the falling water level. So 2014 capacity was downrated by 23%. And as the water levels continued declining here. So um, to lower the minimum power pool elevation from 10,000 from 1,050 to 950 feet. Five wide head turbines designed to work efficiently with less flow were installed so they can decrease the minimum power pool. So this is a lot of money that's going into doing this. But as when you get to basically down below that level and you start to get into dead pool territory, nothing's gonna happen. So you won't even be able to generate power even with these new turbines. So so peak over 10 terawatts, terawatt hours down to 3.6 terawatt hours. Now they're running even less. So here's who gets the power mainly, percentage-wise. Metropolitan Water District, Southern California, 28 some percent. State of Nevada, State of Arizona, big users, City of Los Angeles, 15%, Southern California Edison, and then decreasing percentages, some different cities here who are basically outliers of Las Vegas and Los Angeles. So so you can see how losing power starts to impact some pretty big sized populations. So, and as he points out here, you can also think of this who gets screwed when it runs dry list. So, very apropos. So, here is what's happening in recent years. So, this is just talking about the generation or the generation of electricity at Hoover Dam since the year 2000, and you can see it's steadily dropping with the water levels. So he quotes some other articles here. This was a really good article in Esquire magazine that Lake Mead could soon be a dead pool. It's already a pool of the dead, and goes on to talk about the current water levels. If the reservoir drops below 895 feet, it would reach dead pool. That's what we talked about earlier. And so they're talking about this being years off. But the problem is Lake Mead is in a very narrow V-shaped valley. So what happens is as the water levels drop, there becomes less area to store the water. So the as the water levels drop, as they get lower, they actually drop faster because you have less area for the water to occupy. So it really happens a lot faster than you might calculate just based on the current surface area. It's not straight up and down, it's a V-shaped valley. So you start dropping down and you get into the narrower part of that V, and it starts dropping really fast. So they're calculating that we're probably looking at dead pool at current rates somewhere in late 2023. So less than a year out. That's a serious situation, and that's why the Bureau of Reclamation is really taking some pretty drastic measures here. So let's proceed here. Less electricity being made. They're talking about we're pushing for electric cars and a lot more electric stuff. If we're generating less power, it isn't happening. Where's all this electricity going to come from? That's another consideration that we're not going to dive into too deep here. But the other thing is he talks a little bit about conservation here, but people get tired of conservation. You go into your 5th year of conserving water, people start cheating, and conservation. People are a little less enthusiastic about conservation than they were at the beginning, so they start to cheat, and you don't save quite as much water, so you have to go to mandatory cuts, and the heavy hand of the government comes down on you. So this is the problem with voluntary conservation. So we're going to see some mandatory conservation. So one of the things he points out here appropriately is agriculture uses a lot of this water. And there is a lot of water-intensive crops being grown in California, and this is a problem. We all like agriculture, but when you're growing water-intensive crops like alfalfa, that's all shipped to Saudi Arabia to feed their racehorses. You're growing almonds that are all shipped to China and Japan. And almonds require a lot of water too. There maybe needs to be some better decisions about what types of crops you grow and how you irrigate those things. So it's going to seriously affect agriculture. It's going to affect everybody, but you're just not going to be able to grow those water-intensive crops. So it's just the way it is. So and this points out what I said. You're in a narrow V-shaped valley, so the lower it goes, the faster it drops. And so he calculates it out here, and this is just kind of a ballpark calculation, is 225 days to reach dead pool at the current rate. So around September 2023. So a little more than a year out. Now, he's talking about some mitigating factors here. There's some dams upstream. They can release more water if needed. And, that, as he points out, that requires the government to manage those water releases. And quite frankly, there's a lot of politics in this. So what happens? But the big one upstream of Lake Mead is Lake Powell. And Lake Powell, as we saw, is really in no better situation than Lake Mead. So it really would have to come from those dams that are farther upstream. And lots of luck on that. Now, he talks about some other factors here. And quite frankly, California, Nevada, Arizona, looking at the situation right now, if we have what is a normal water year, a lot of those in a row, maybe you'd get back to the right situation. But quite frankly, we have agriculture is consuming a lot more water than they should by growing these water-intensive crops. We have overpopulation, overbuilding of houses. So population is contributing to this. And so it's a sticky situation. How do you tell people you can't live in Los Angeles anymore? You have to go somewhere else where there's more water. I mean, that's very difficult to do. But if there's no water, maybe people self-select on that. Or if there's mandatory water rationing where you get 20 gallons a day and you have to sponge bath out of that, maybe they don't want to live there anyway, and the problem solves itself. So that's part of the situation. He goes back to the agricultural situation, and that's that. He does talk a little bit about climate change and overuse of water, kind of working together. However, what it really comes down to, and we'll talk about climate change and how much the drought is really affecting this, or if it's some other things. So that's the situation here. So upstream, we have Lake Powell, which is Glen Canyon Dam, and it's running dry true, as we saw the point. It's 35 feet, now 32 feet, since this article was written, above minimum power pool. So that's getting pretty darn close. That's a little close for comfort. And there's to say that there's probably some panic going on at the Bureau of Reclamation would probably be an understatement. Here's that map again showing the all the dams in the system. So we see Glen Canyon Dam, Lake Powell upstream of Lake Mead. So these are the two really big ones. These smaller dams could all release more water, but the problem is can they, or do they need? They're affected as well. So can they release enough water to salvage Glen Canyon Dam? Probably not, but the Bureau of Reclamation is going to make them. So so they're also a lot smaller, so they're going to contribute a lot less. So what are you going to do? That's really the problem here. So what the Bureau of Reclamation is doing is they say they're going to help prop up Lake Powell, by nearly 1 million acre feet of water over the next 12 months. So that's May 2022 through April 2023. So they're going to hold back 1 million acre feet of water, keep that in the lake and not release it. That helps Lake Powell. Certainly does not help Lake Mead, which is downstream from Lake Powell. So this is robbing Peter to pay Paul. There's just not enough water to go around in the system, so you're going to hurt Lake Mead by salvaging Lake Powell. But Lake Powell is a little closer to minimum power pool, so that's where they're focusing their effort right now. They're reducing Glen Canyon Dam's annual release volume from 7.4 million acre feet to 7 million acre feet. So this is going to help a little bit. So, but it's bad for Lake Mead because now there's going to be even less water flowing into it, and what it's already getting is not enough. So here's the deal. So it's a drought. Worst drought in 1,200 years, they're saying. But is it really the drought that's causing these water shortages, or it's just people taking too much water? Well, we go to the stats, and this is what's interesting about this article here is the inclination is to blame climate change and drought conditions and all that bad anthropogenic global warming that's going on. But let's look at the situation here. This is, and remember where our situation is, the Colorado River Basin, upper basin in here, lower basin down here. And these are all these little basins upstream from there and getting up into Washington and Oregon, which really don't impact that. Those are other basins, Columbia River Basin and that. But this is the area we're looking at. And this is water year data, precipitation based on the norm. So you can see that in most of the area here, now you get down into the southern basin of the Colorado River, little bit different, but in the upper part of that area, we're seeing 90 to 109% of normal precipitation coming into those areas. So not a lack of water apparently coming in here. You get down here and you're into 70 to 89%. So you're a little down, but you're not in critical territory. There's like one area here where you're the 50 to 69%. So really, is the drought to blame? It looks like we're getting water that's precipitation that's coming in at fairly normal levels. So what's going on here? So this guy went and he called up the data here, and I'm going to show you this here in a little bit. And these are all the basins that make up the upper and lower part of the Colorado River. Is broken into Green River and some other areas here. He's got it all here. I'll scroll down through this and I'm going to show you and then come back here. This is the lower Colorado River Basin. So let me show you what that looks like. Here is upper Colorado River Basin water, and in this column, the column to the far right is percent of median. So you can see we got a lot of stuff that's 80 over almost 90%. We got 120%, 100% in some areas. All these different basins are showing relatively normal precipitation in the upper part of Escalante River, a little bit lower there. And in some areas, you're seeing some spotty getting down to the 80% area, 68 in southeastern Utah, like we showed on the map. So you're seeing a lot of 100%, 90 to 100% in here. So is it really the drought that's impacting Colorado River water? and I'm scrolling through here because these are all broken down into basins. This is the lower Colorado River Basin here. So we can see, you know, still we got some areas where you're down in the 60 and 70%. So there is some impact, but there's still plenty of 90% plus in here, 80 to 90%, even some that are over 100% in these areas. So the drought may not be impacting things quite as bad as we think. So and climate change and all that. So here's where we get into the conclusions here, and this is where the rubber meets the road. So we looked at this a little bit earlier. These are the two basins, the general basins of the Colorado River, and these are made into a lot of smaller basins. So the upper basin is really defined by everything upstream of the Glen Canyon Dam, and then the lower basin is defined by everything upstream of where the Colorado River discharges, if there's any water left, which there usually isn't, into the Gulf of California. So Mexico's the one that really gets screwed on that because basically not much water. I mean, there's barely a trickle that flows into Mexico. It's all taken out before it gets to Mexico. So Mexico kind of gets screwed. So this is the two areas, and the upper basin people and lower basin people do not get along. Constant fighting. Like I say, the probably most of the cheating happens in the lower basin, but I venture to say that the upper basin has their fair share of people violating the allocations as it were. So, but the upstream people get the first shot at the water. So the downstream people are the people that get what's left. So that's where the ill will kind of develops here is you're stealing our water. Well, is it your water? So, I mean, when you're taking more than you're allocated, you can't really accuse anybody else of stealing your water. So here's the deal is the 7 states that rely on the Colorado River must come up with a plan to cut 2 to 4 million acre feet of water use by mid-August. The clock is ticking now. This is really a month and a half that they have to. That's, given the fact that these people don't agree on anything, that's almost an impossible task. They're going to have to do it, or the Bureau of Reclamation says they will do it for them. Whether they actually live up to that promise and do it or not, I don't think they have any choice. But sometimes people waffle, or partial solutions get put in there, and governments are notorious for kicking the can down the road. But we're really at the point where you can't kick the can down the road much farther. I mean, Lake Powell is 32 feet from minimum power pool. That doesn't take much to get down there. That's a critical situation, and unless you do something here, and their Band-Aid measure that they're talking about is cutting releases from the dam. Not only does it hurt Lake Mead, but it's just a Band-Aid going on there. So they really need to do that. They're basically getting forced into this, but that's a massive amount of water. It's really it's going to be very, very difficult to do. So we're going to really keep an eyeball on this and see if it actually happens. So as he points out here, could the Colorado River really dry up? And possibly, I mean, obviously, if you're reaching dead pool at Lake Powell and Lake Mead, no water's flowing downstream. So those places are going to dry up, and then eventually Parker Dam and Lake Davis are going to, those places are going to dry up too, because there's not going to be water flowing in. So you could reach situations where you just have a trickle of water coming down there, and it's going to turn into a great place for people with the four-wheelers to get out there and play in what used to be the Colorado River. I guess that's somebody might benefit from that, but there is going to be water. So if the lakes reach dead pool, it's they're too low to pass water through them, then you're basically cutting off Colorado River water to anybody downstream. Going to affect huge people. They just can't let it happen, and it may happen in spite of their best efforts. I mean, as staggering as 2 to 4 million acre feet of cuts above and beyond what they're already conserving is, it may be that more of it is actually needed if we continue on in this situation. So really, what what we need to do is you're going to have to use less water. I mean, there's already been articles out. Uh, People in Arizona are saying that we need to use less water. Agriculture needs to get away from those water-intensive crops. It's amazing to me that they continue to do that. We need our agriculture, but if you're producing water-intensive crops where you don't have the water to produce them, eventually you're going to go out of business anyway. So groundwater is not an answer. I can tell you that the groundwater levels are being overused and those are in danger. Their water levels are dropping all over California in groundwater situations. So using groundwater is not the answer. The state water project in California and those federal water projects, those are suffering from some of the same situations. So you can't just go elsewhere for the water. So maybe what you look at is, and I had somebody suggest to me that you resurrect the idea of piping water from the Mississippi River or the Columbia River into these areas. That would be an enormous public works project, very, very expensive, but it may be part of the answer. It may be that's the money you have to spend. Can you limit the population? How do you do that? I mean, that kind of gets at the basics of American freedom there. So, can you tell people that you can't live here anymore? We're having a cap on our population. What happens if you have babies? That's just it's staggering to think of those things. But these are really some of the things we're facing if we're continuing in the drought and overuse of water. So yeah. The bottom line is the drought contributes to this, but what contributes even more is the overuse of water. We have too many people in an area that's essentially a desert, and geologically, and I've said this before, is geologically, if you go back and look at geologic history, yeah, this may be the worst drought in 1,200 years, but if you look back through geologic time, there was far more significant droughts that lasted for decades. So California has really flip-flopped back and forth between being a desert and being relatively lush. When settlers originally moved into California in the mid 1800s, it was going through a pretty wet period. You had Tulare Lake was actually a lake. You could drill wells that were artesian wells, and so there was a lot of water. So the idea was California has an abundance of water. But if you look at history, the geologic history especially, it's just not true. California is a desert more often than it is wet. So California is going through a period now of what I'd call probably more normalcy, or it's the pendulum swinging back and forth, and that's so you can blame it on anthropogenic global warming, and that may factor in there some, but it is certainly not the biggest factor. A lot of it is natural climate change. The La Nina situation. Is La Nina exacerbated by anthropogenic conditions? Probably some. How much? I don't think anybody really knows, but geologically, we go back and look at the geologic record, and before there was any significant population in California, certainly any industrialization, we were still going through these cycles, and some a lot more significant than what we're going through now. So to blame it entirely on anthropogenic global warming is completely disingenuous. So what can we do? Somehow we need to figure out the population thing. Agriculture needs to make a fundamental shift. get back to growing crops that are suitable for the area in drought conditions, more efficient irrigating. I think we're seeing some of that. Recharge of groundwater is important. We need to get by some of these arcane laws in California that really prohibit doing any significant aquifer storage and recovery projects. And then, probably in the long range, we really need to look at some of these major water projects, like bringing water from the Columbia River and the Mississippi River into the area here. So, and so that these are some significant things. Northern California flushes a lot of their water out to the sea. They need to look at that as well. And so these are all things that can be done. The question is there the will and the funding to do these things? That remains doubtful. And that's really kind of where we're at on things. So, and as at the final point here, in this part of the article, he says we could cut off major cities in the Colorado River Basin: Phoenix, Los Angeles, Denver, Las Vegas, and the savings still wouldn't be enough to produce the kind of water we're talking about here. So probably going to get through this year without draining Lake Mead, but there's too many people, too many farms growing water-intensive crops. We're going to run out of water, and so some of these water cuts are going to be forced upon us. All right, so that's kind of the grim and dire situation here. That I'm interested in your comments on this, and it's I wanted to bring it to your attention because you're going to hear a lot more people talking about minimum power pool and dead pool when you get to the Southwest, and it's going to be something you're going to hear about. So I wanted you to introduce those terms, so when they start getting bandied about a lot here in the next year or so, you're going to know what they are and what the situation is and what's causing it. So, and really, I'm just going to leave you with this: is do we have the willpower to do what it takes to deal with this situation? And I have to admit, I'm skeptical. So we could very well reach dead pool, and at that point, people are gonna panic. You're gonna see stuff like the Dust Bowl days. People are going to be migrating away from California, and you're going to see Dust Bowl conditions. It could happen, and that's kind of what I'm afraid of. So hopefully we have the wherewithal to step up to the plate and deal with these things. It looks like the Bureau of Reclamation is working on that, but will they succumb to the politics as they so often do, and come up with these compromise solution that kicks the can down the road once again? There isn't much road left to kick the can down, I'll tell you that. And so something needs to be done. It should have been done quite a while ago. We've known this was coming. That's the Bureau of Reclamation's job. They've known it's coming, but they keep hoping for wet years to kind of alleviate the situation. So that allows them to kick the can down the road. I don't think it's coming, at least for the next year. I think the dry conditions are going to persist, and certainly the baseline conditions of too many people and too much agriculture growing water-intensive crops is probably going to continue until it's forced to stop. So that's me. I'm Tom Ballard, the Groundwater Guy. Thanks for listening. There's my contact information. We stream every week into the Groundwater Guy YouTube channel, and all my recordings are there. So if you want to go back, we got some interesting stuff in our library, so go back and look at that. Also stream into LinkedIn. There's my profile there. I usually announce that every week on LinkedIn. So those are the two places we stream. If you want to be a guest on Groundwater Talk Live, I'd love to have people come on and talk, and the drought situation and water shortages is certainly a topic of timely interest. So that's where you can reach me to schedule a session to come on. And if you don't want to come on live, we can record it and edit it to your liking. But I like doing live just because it's just natural, and you take it warts and all, and so I make plenty of mistakes, but you just roll with the punches after a while. All right. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Groundwater Guy YouTube channel. Hit the bell if you want to know when we got a new video coming out. And that's it.